Hello, friends. Welcome to our Powers Within podcast. I'm your host, Chas Smith, and my mission for this podcast is to inspire you to take your power back and to realize that you are the healer that you have been looking for all along. And I'm going to jump right into this week's challenge today. So I think we're going to go with classic gratitude. So for the week, every day, from whatever day you listen to this episode, my challenge is for you to write down in a journal what you are grateful for. And if you're not fancy with the old school journal with pen and paper, you could write it in your notes app on your iPhone, whatever floats your boat. But yeah, just a couple tips for this exercise. Rather than just jotting down a bunch of things really fast without really allowing that grateful spirit to sink in to your beingness, I challenge you to really create an experience around this. Write down or type down or what have you, not just what you're grateful for, but why. And then with each thing that you write down, let that really sink in. Allow every cell in your body to feel the gratitude. And P.S. If there's anyone out there listening to this right now thinking that you have nothing to be grateful for, I call hogwash. No matter how sick we are, no matter how bad life might seem, there is always, always, always a reason to be grateful. Um, And being grateful for the good does not diminish the other ways that you might feel. So, believe it or not, we can be happy and sad. We can be grateful and mad. So, even if you're sad, even if you're depressed, even if you're anxious, even if you're mad, even if you feel angry, even if you feel lost and hopeless and uninspired, um, even if whatever that feeling is, I promise that there's space for you to hold for that feeling and also gratitude. And I challenge you to really get creative with this because I'll give you some good examples. If you feel like there's nothing to be grateful for, you know what's so great when we feel ungrateful? Travel, especially if we're from the States or any like westernized country, travel because you see really fast what other people don't have that we just take so much for granted. If you live in a house, if you have a roof over your head, in spite of everything else you might feel, you have something to be grateful for. If you have running water inside your home, you have something to be grateful for. If you have a hot shower that you are able to take, that is something to be grateful for. I know it seems like far fetched, like, oh, well, everyone has that, but you know what? Not everyone does. I've been places, I've stayed in homes where people had to go outside to shower and they only had cold water. They have to do their dishes outside with only cold water, and it's not always hot there. So the truth of the matter is, there's always a reason to be grateful. And like I already said, we can be grateful and whatever else we feel at the same time. It's just a choice. And that is giving us choice, and choice empowers us. So stand in your power and be creative and make some choices to find and focus on the good in spite of anything else that you might also be feeling in this now moment. And see if you could do that just a little bit every day for the next 7 days. And as always, have fun with it because you just might surprise yourself. And our guest today is Laura Haraka. Laura is going to share with us her testimonial story, woo woo, another testimonial, along with all of her wonderful discoveries that she has made as she's navigated this unfolding in her life. She's now gone on to become a coach, and she's very passionate about some really fun somatic practices that I haven't actually had anyone else on the podcast share before, which is really cool. I think it's so wonderful for us to have options of different tools and approaches because, there's not a one size fits all, and what works for you might not work for me, and vice versa. And who knows, maybe this is a tool that might really resonate for you and something that you can experiment with and have a lot of success around. So, with that, I'm going to welcome Laura to the show so that she can share her story and we can learn about this really cool somatic practice. All right, Laura, thank you so much for being here with me today and everybody who is listening.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm really excited, as always, to share testimonials with the listeners. I know that they're a great source of hope and inspiration. So, yeah, it's takes a lot of courage. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I think what we normally do to start out with is let people who are here to share their story have a chance to kind of begin with giving us an idea of who you are and what you've been going through and what journey you've been on into healing and where you're at today.
Right. So you'd like me to begin with just my story so far?
Yeah.
Sure. Here we go.
The most important part.
Yes. My journey basically began in May 2nd of 2015. I remember the date exactly. And it started just like any other day. And then all of a sudden, I started having these UTI symptoms. And I never had a UTI in my life, but I assumed that's what it was. And I just kind of had some yogurt, drank some water, seeing if that would make this feeling pass, but it didn't. It just started getting progressively worse. So I went to my primary care doctor, figuring he would just give me an antibiotic and I'd be fine in 24 hours. Unfortunately, I did not have a UTI. There was no infection. So I went on to see 3 different urologists. They all did invasive testing. I had a cystoscopy done, a urodynamic study done, and again, they really couldn't find anything. But they did give me medication for overactive bladder. When that didn't work, they gave me medication for retention. The third urologist basically implied I was crazy and I needed a psychiatrist. And I remember just going into my car, just sobbing because I knew something was wrong. And what happened was over the next few months, I started developing chronic pelvic pain. And it became worse every day. So I had to do something because it hurt to sit and stand and walk for too long. I couldn't wear any restrictive clothing, and I had to have like a cushion for my car. And I didn't know which way to turn. So I went to the medical community, and over the next 3 years, I saw over 25 doctors. I had MRI scans, ultrasounds, Botox injections, nerve blocks, iliolingual injections. And basically, I had 10 different diagnoses. I was diagnosed by a gynecologist with pelvic floor dysfunction and a condition called PGAD. And I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but it's persistent genital arousal disorder, and it's completely unwanted and unprovoked. I was put on supplements, they gave me medication, Botox, none of that helped. I then went on to see an orthopedist because they found a slight herniated disc in my back, and he gave me a nerve block, which again, the herniated disc was not the cause of my pain, and the nerve block did not help. I continued to go on, and I went to a surgeon, and he diagnosed me with a hernia. But he didn't think that was the cause of my pain either. I continued to a pelvic pain doctor, where I was diagnosed with interstitial cystitis. I was also diagnosed with urethral inflammation. So when I go to his office once a week, and I had to travel like an hour and a half each way to get there, and he gave me bladder installations where they have to catheterize you and they insert medication up the catheter into your bladder. And what happened was he wanted me to do these installations more than once a week. So he taught me how to do these installations at home. So I basically learned how to catheterize myself. when I was there, he also gave me trigger point injections. Now, the catheterization, I will tell you, was traumatizing, on its own. But the problem was it wasn't working. So I went on to see an interventional radiologist, and he diagnosed me with pelvic floor congestion syndrome, which are like large varicose veins in your pelvic floor. And he said the only way to correct it was a surgery. So they did an embolization of my ovarian veins. So I actually had a surgery to try and correct this. But again, it didn't work. I then went on to see two pelvic pain doctors, and they both diagnosed me with pudendal neuralgia. But one of them just gave me nerve blocks, and again, that didn't work. And then the second one, I had a series of iliolingual injections, which also did not stop my pain. At that point, um, I was becoming very frustrated, and I went to see pain management doctors where they basically put me on oxycodone. And the problem there was now I was addicted to, pain medication. I wasn't going to stop there though. I decided that there has to be some kind of reason for this. So I went to a PN specialist, a pudendal neuralgia specialist in Tennessee, where he was doing this experimental procedure to give these injections that he said he was having lots of success with. And I jumped on it, jumped on a plane to Tennessee, went there and had the procedure done. And again, no help with this. I also went again to a specialist in Washington, D.C., and all they did was basically give me supplements, creams, and other medications, which again didn't help. But she did give me a prescription for another MRI. And in this MRI, they found two Tarlov cysts. So I wanted to see if this was what was causing my pain. And I was so determined to get this pain to go away that I went to the top Tarlov cyst specialists in the country that I could find. And I hopped on a plane and went to Texas. Fortunately, he did not think that the Tarlov cysts were causing my pain, so I did not have a surgery. I decided to go to a different gynecologist, and here's my last diagnosis. I was diagnosed with endometriosis. Again, they were not, any of these things I was diagnosed with or they found, these findings were never the cause of my pain. And I always tell people I'm a vomit. I'm a victim of modern imaging technology. They were all these abnormalities in my body, but they were all normal. None of them were causing my pain. So I went on and tried holistic treatments, all types of alternative therapies, cryotherapy, all these extreme diets, Reiki, acupuncture. I did float tanks. So I tried all these things as well. And at this point, the relationship with my family and my children basically deteriorated. I was sick for 3 years. I was on oxy, morphine, nerve medications, Klonopin, and it took a toll on me and my body. And it didn't even help. And I basically lost connection with my children. And that was the hardest part of this whole thing, that I could see the anger and resentment building, up inside them. And at the same time, I felt guilty for what this was doing to my family, not only emotionally, but for the financial burden. And I didn't want to hug my kids, kiss them, because my physical pain was just too great. But then it changed. So this is the good part of the story. My 16-year-old daughter came home from work one day and told me about a friend that she worked with that used a hypnotherapist to heal from a chronic pain condition. So I was definitely very skeptical because all these doctors that I've seen said they could help me, and they didn't. So in July of 2017, I met Caitlin Peterson. And I didn't know it yet that when I walked through her doors, that she would basically change my life forever. She was definitely different than any other therapist or person that I've ever met. Her techniques were different. She actually didn't care about the diagnosis or the symptoms. And I would not be here today if it wasn't for her. So we started these hypnotherapy sessions. And for those of you who are a little unsure what that is, I was able to basically go into this deep meditative state and connect with my emotions. And during these sessions, we worked on letting go of my anger, my fear, my guilt, my sadness, all these things I was repressing that honestly I didn't know I was repressing. And during the very first session, I was actually able to get my pain to decrease. And I was completely confused because none of the doctors that I had seen over the past few years were able to do this. So that was like what I like to call my first aha moment.
Wow. And was
Yeah.
this the same hypnotherapist that your daughter's coworker's friend used?
Yep. Same one.
Ah, okay. So
Same one.
cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. It is so cool. So from this point on, what happened was I would experience a series of aha moments. And it was the first time when this happened that I was aware there was a mind body connection. I never knew that existed. And the next thing that happened was I took a meditation class with this woman, Ann Sussman, and she's a great teacher. And during these classes, I started to calm my whole system down. Um, all these emotions I was repressing, basically, and my past traumas, they caused a lot of stress in my life. So my nervous system was so activated that I didn't even realize it. And after a while, I was able to get the pain to either shift, decrease, or even go away. But I will tell you, this did not happen overnight. It wasn't like I meditated one day and it was gone. I was completely disciplined and consistent with my practice. And it was the first form of self care that I actually gave myself. So I continued to practice self care and self compassion during this time. And I was so amazed with the shift that I was feeling in the pain that I actually created a whole room in my house for meditation. So, this is why that's important. I cleared out this whole room in my house. This was an exercise room that I was actually no longer using because I thought I couldn't because, I wasn't feeling well. So, I bought all new furniture for the room. I cleared out the old stuff. I put the furniture together. I got pictures for the walls, salt lamps, diffusers. And as I was doing the project, as I was reading the directions, putting the furniture together, I realized that the pain went down. So that's when I put it all together. When my brain was completing another task that I wanted to do, and I concentrated on it, the pain went down. So that was my next aha moment. So now I not only meditated, I also learned how to practice mindfulness, where I kept myself in the present moment, basically without judgment. I started taking walks and started looking for things I could hear, touch, feel, smell, taste. And I kind of kept myself out of my thoughts to, to stop focusing on the pain so much. And instead of focusing on it, I recited mantras that I'm healing, I'm strong. And people say to me, how can I stop thinking about the pain? Well, it's kind of like when you get a song stuck in your head. You hear a song in the radio and then it's stuck in your head all day. Well, that's what I kind of did with these mantras. So I stopped, focusing on my pain and started focusing on mantras like I am healing. And I started then visualizing myself healthy. And I did this every day, actually. I took some time, 5 to 10 minutes a day, just to visualize myself with the life I wanted. And I repeated doing this and repeated the mantras before I sat, before I ate, before I went to the bathroom. And I started realizing that there was this mind body connection to it because I was seeing a shift in my symptoms. But my favorite story and my favorite aha moment is I would see Caitlin twice a week because I was in, I was in a bad state. I was depressed, I was anxious, and I was in a tremendous amount of pain. And there was this long hallway that led down to her office. And I would always get there before her. So I'd be sitting at the door of her office outside, waiting for her to come. And before she turned the corner, she would peek down the corner to see if I was there. And all of a sudden, I would hear music coming on. So she would play this music and she danced down the entire hallway. And it was basically the only thing that made me smile all week.
Oh.
So, but this is why the story is important. I was so grateful that this woman, I don't know many therapists that would dance down a hallway for anybody. And I couldn't put the gratitude into words. And I wanted to find some way to repay her. So it was 3 months before her birthday. And what I did was I have 2 teenage daughters, and they helped me learn the steps to a dance. And it actually took me 3 months to learn this dance for her birthday. And it took me 3 months because I'm a really bad dancer. But I learned the dance, and I decided for her birthday I would dance down that same hallway. So what happened was, while I was practicing with my kids and I was engaged with them, engaged in the steps and having fun, and it was bringing me joy, I was focused on a new task and the pain went down and sometimes vanished. And I didn't really know about TMS at the time, but I do know now that I was creating or forming new neural pathways in my brain and weakening the old ones.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So then I had another aha moment. My daughter played soccer, and we had to go to to Florida for a soccer tournament. And I get on the plane, and I'm a little nervous at this point. I didn't want to be in pain on this trip. And at this point in time, I actually got myself off all the painkillers. I weaned off the oxy, and I decided I didn't, need them anymore or want to be on them. I would come home and I would just be zoned out. So it wasn't a good thing for my kids to be seeing either. So I went to Florida, and when the plane landed, the pain went away. It was like it vanished for the 3 days while I was there. Now, the funny thing is, I went because we were in Disney World. So I went on, I believe it's called the Magical Express. And we went on the bus ride back to the airport, and the pain started creeping back in. And I remember this. I turned to my husband and said to him, Caitlin's the key. She's the answer to this whole thing. So I came home, I continued my hypnotherapy sessions, and I stumbled upon a search in the internet, and I found this book, Unlearn Your Pain by Dr. Schubiner. And that was my next aha moment. I felt like as I was reading the pages that I was reading a book just about myself. Like it was me, my autobiography. I had all the TMS personality types. I just fit the mold, a perfectionist, people pleaser, you name it. And I reflected back over my whole entire life. And I realized I had a lot of other TMS symptoms that he was mentioning in the book. I had peripheral neuropathy. I had gastritis, arthritis, sciatica, migraines, tons of TMS symptoms. So at this point, I'm almost, convinced that that this is a mind-body condition. So in the back of Dr. Schubiner's book, I found a TMS therapist, Wendy Newman, who also I owe a lot to. She taught me tools that greatly impacted my life. I'm very grateful to her as well. And she is a somatic therapist as well. She showed me basically how to move energy in my body and how to identify emotions and where they're showing up in our body. And when I was able to identify the emotion that was underlying, the pain went down. So that was a big aha moment for me. But the last hurdle that I needed, and I know a lot of people need that because I see my clients need this a lot. I was almost there. I was 99% there, convinced that this was a mind body condition. So I saw Dr. Paul Gwatz because I kind of needed it from a doctor, even though I knew it. So basically, the doctor diagnosed me with TMS. So I had his stamp of approval, and I went on this course of action to just go on a mind body journey. And I basically, he told me just to start looking at my symptoms, not from a physical point to an emotional way of looking at them. So I would literally just say, my symptoms aren't physical. They're my brain's way of protecting me from. And as I named the emotion, I would also feel it in my body. So that's some of the steps I took. And I decided at that point that I was going to accept this. I was going to accept this TMS diagnosis. So I decided to read a few more books about it, learn as much as I could. And one of the main things I did was I got out of all my Facebook pain groups. I didn't want to be in them or focused on those anymore because I knew that this was a mind-body issue. I started exercising again because I knew this wasn't structural. I decided to meditate every day. I journaled. And I also, besides meditating, I also did circular connected breath work, which was a big part of me getting better. I started also becoming conscious of the way I spoke to myself. I realized that the thoughts, you feed are the ones that grow. So I started talking to myself in a much kinder way. And I developed a lot of self-compassion and self-care routines where I learned to, hold hands with the pain and give it a voice and look at it through a lens of curiosity. So I just basically put a plan in place, and it wasn't going to be my whole day, but I was going to practice some mind body tools. And the rest of my day was to find joy and continue to give myself messages of safety. So I stopped talking about the pain. I stopped focusing on it. And I decided to keep dancing because dancing made me happy. And I started doing TikToks with my kids, and it just kept reinforcing, this new habit. And people say to me, okay, I'm going to dance now because this helped you get better. I always tell them, do what makes you feel better. Do what makes something you love to do. Dancing was something that was fun for me that I can engage with my kids in. And I stopped waiting for the pain, to go away. And I just started finding joy in my life. So I basically started taking my power back. I forgave myself for all the guilt I felt, how it affected my family. And I practiced a lot of forgiveness tools for the anger I felt, toward other people, actually. And the more I practiced, the more I did, the more aha moments that kept coming. And I always tell my clients, it's like, this last year for my 50th birthday, I bought myself a red Jeep Wrangler. But before I bought the car, I decided I was going to buy a red Jeep Wrangler. And then all of a sudden I went on the road and I see more Jeep Wranglers and more Jeep Wranglers. So the more evidence it's the same thing. The more evidence that I came up with that it was TMS, the more evidence that was going to come to me. So I just started living the way I wanted, regardless of what's happening. And I will tell you, though, I didn't just ignore it, the pain. I listened to it and switched my mindset to indifference. And when bad days did happen, because they did happen along the way, healing is not linear. Um, I basically took it as an opportunity to teach my brain that I was safe. I'd say, okay, you're here again. That's okay. This is just another opportunity instead of bracing and fearing it. Um, and, people ask me all the time if I'm completely out of pain. And the answer is yes and no. The answer is yes, but we're all human beings and we all experience pain at some points. If we had a stressful day at work or know we're going to have a stressful day at work, we might have a migraine, or if we have to give a speech, um, we might have butterflies in our stomach or an upset stomach. So everyone has pain sometimes. It's part of life. But I don't fear it anymore. And I get curious about it and I listen to it if it comes. And the funny thing is, all my other TMS symptoms that I had, these little things, gastritis, things I've had over the years that would pop up every so often, they went away too, as well. So that's basically where I am today.
Wow, that's so much fun. I love listening to this. I am curious, just because I'm curious.
Okay.
How was your therapist like reaction when you did that dance for her?
She loved it. She loved it. She was laughing. It was great. And actually, every year I do a dance for her now on her
Oh,
birthday.
I love it.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been doing this now for 4 years. I've been doing a dance for her, and we actually have. She runs a women's group actually, and this last year for her birthday, I got all six of us to do the dance together.
Your family?
This is
Oh,
our women's group that she
oh, you got your
runs.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so we got
Oh,
all of them, all of us. We did it together for her, so that was pretty cool too. So
that is so much fun. And it sounds like, because you did make mention that at one point your relationship with your family was deteriorating, but it sounds like that's probably improved exponentially, especially now that you guys had this opportunity to bond through dancing and making TikToks and you re engaged with joy.
yeah, we actually have an even closer relationship now.
I love that.
Yeah, we haven't even, and that's actually one of the blessings that came from this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll tell you, as far as, and I don't know if it's okay to talk about that now,
Of
but
course.
the blessings, okay. But I'll tell you, I can't say to you, I'm glad I had this pain condition. It was not a good thing to go through. However, um, it makes me very empathetic toward others going through it. So that actually is a blessing. For when I share my story, I'm very understanding. But the best part of it, the best blessing, I guess, that came out of this is I became a better parent. This taught me tools to help me with all life situations, not just symptoms. And because of that, I was able to teach my children from my own journey. I was able to teach them resilience, strength, perseverance. Um, my kids know they have to feel their feelings now, and we're very open. And they actually know now too that symptoms are not always they're not physical all the time. I'm not saying we don't need doctors, we do. Um, but now they've learned to look at their symptoms through a different lens. And it's actually kind of funny if they come to me with something, Mom, I'm not feeling good, this, or this hurts. And they go, I know what you're going to say, Mom. I know it's TMS. So it's it's kind of funny. And it's not that I don't take them seriously, but a lot of times now the symptom seems to go away with them really quickly. So that's a blessing that they have a different outlook and what pain means and what pain can do to the body. Um, so that was one of the major blessings that came out of this. And I guess I have two other things that were really great is I feel like one of the blessings is I'm able to give people hope. I started sharing my story to as many people that will listen, and it helps me fulfill my purpose. And I share this story with people and have clients all over the world now. So the ability to give people hope is a blessing to me. It really is. And the other blessing is it changed how I live my own life now. I'm living my best life now. I'm helping people. I have the Jeep Wrangler that I want to drive. I'm more in the moment. So I'm in the present. When I'm with my kids, I'm present. When I'm with my clients, I'm present. And I'm able to live a better life.
I love that.
Mm.
So I have a question that it's something you mentioned up a little while ago.
Sure.
You said that would, you would identify the emotions underlying the conditions, and you noticed that when you did this, the pain went away. This was with the tools that Wendy taught you.
Yes.
Did you ever, as a lot of this pain and random kind of TMS symptoms started dissipating, did you ever correlate certain situations in your life, certain traumas, or just certain emotions with certain pain?
Yes, I definitely did. Um, Without getting, too specific, there were definitely people in my life that I was very angry with.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to process this through somatic therapy.
Okay.
Um, and there was actions. Basically, what happens is with somatic therapy, there's, trauma that basically gets stuck in the body. And when you're able to let that action be completed and discharge, the action becomes completed, and the pain can dissipate. We can release that trauma.
Mm. What would some of the somatic practices that you did look like?
Well, basically, a lot of it is done through visualization. And if I had to get the anger out of my body, you can actually visualize yourself punching and releasing that anger. The other couple things I did was I learned to lean into positive sensations in the body. What we don't realize basically is there's sensations that are in our whole body.
Mm-hmm.
We're just not aware of them because they're not painful. The ones that are painful scream out at us, but there's sensations that are happening in our entire body that we just don't lean into. For example, if I even right now, my feet are on the ground and I put my awareness on my feet, I can actually feel sensations in my feet. I can feel sensations in my hand if I extend my hand out in front of me. You can feel weight or tingling and things like that. Um, the other thing I did with the somatics was I was able to, this helps with fear too. I was able to uh, basically reduce the fear response in my brain. I would watch the sensations, I would observe them, and I would look at them through a lens of curiosity. I might describe them, and if they were whatever sensation they were giving me at the time. And it helped me just look at it basically through a different lens, out of not fearing it, just watching it. Like I was kind of watching clouds in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, what I do, and I do this with my own clients, is I titrate back and forth between the symptoms and just noticing them, giving them a voice, and then going back to something that's a positive sensation in my body and leaning into that.
I really like that. Okay, yeah, and that's a really good point. Is that it's so great to notice all the positive things, like I think about when I start exercising or moving my body, I always love to pause and just close my eyes and breathe and notice that life force energy that starts moving as the blood starts flowing and you start, having that body warm up. It's like really a beautiful experience. And it can
Yeah, yeah,
teach us safety as opposed to like fearing those sensations.
exactly, exactly, exactly. It's the exact same thing with running. I kind of like all these sensations go through your body, like runner's high. Um, People, if they're a runner, they can feel all these sensations going in your body, and we're not scared of them. So, it's not painful. So we're not scared of them because we're just watching the sensations. But the
Right.
ones that are painful, we fear them and then they amplify.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so that's a really good way to reframe or to kind of create new, more supportive, safe, positive neural pathways. If like that one you just said, the orienting back and forth, going from the physical, like the uncomfortable sensation, but then noticing something that actually is that's like neutral
Exactly.
or even
Exactly.
good. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. So we've talked a little bit about a lot of the blessings that you've had through this experience.
Hmm.
Um, and we talked about how it's kind of shifted your life path because it sounds like you're actually doing this as a coach now, right? You're actually coaching other people through chronic pain.
Yes, I am. I am coaching other people through chronic pain now.
At what point did you feel drawn to do that?
You know, I always said when I get better, I'm going to help other people. So, and I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew I was going to do it.
Hmm.
So I decided once I got better that I would take Dr. Schubiner's practitioner training course. And so that I coach men and women with pain conditions to heal. And I also decided because the somatic therapy was so helpful to me that I was going to become a somatic therapist. So I
Mm.
immediately started taking, I'm in somatic experiencing by Peter Levine,
Oh, nice.
and I am I am 2 classes away from my certification. So I'll have that by the end of the year. But I already run sessions on clients now, and I get my clients to basically reduce their fear of the symptoms. We reduce symptoms and eliminate symptoms. So it's really been, a great tool for me. And one of the other things I've done too, which has been really great, is this was something I did and I didn't know I was doing it. I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't just meditate, which I really should mention. I did something called basically a circular connected breath work. And it really helps release trauma, anxiety, and chronic pain in the body. And when I did these connected breathwork sessions on myself, I actually started to fear the pain less as well. And when you do these connected breathwork sessions, you might get some tingling in your fingers, almost the same as like a runner's high, and sometimes a little numbness, and the symptoms would start to shift while I did these sessions on myself. So now I teach these sessions to my clients. And we're having a lot of success between the somatics and the breathwork sessions.
That's awesome. I like circular breath work. It's really
Yeah,
nice.
it's
Although I
great.
will say, it's good to start out slow because even those that numbing and tingling sometimes can, for some people, if you are a little hyper vigilant, that can be a little terrifying.
Yes, it can.
You got to make sure that you're ready for it, and
Yeah, that's why I do it with my clients nice and slowly. And we first start out with just doing in and out of the nose. And I'm very careful with, explaining it to my clients that they have control over it.
hmm.
They have control over their breath and they can slow it down or they can speed it up so that they don't have to get scared of what's going to happen, that they can control the outcome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they have you there also beside
And they
them.
have me there for support. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So how long have you been coaching now?
um, uh, you know what? I think it's been a total of 3 years now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
18, because it was 2018 when you finally found the hypnotherapist and started putting connecting the dots of the mind body.
Yeah. 2017, July 2017, I found her. And then within those next 2 years, I was sailing.
That's awesome. In your experience, like now you've been working with people for a few years, you have your own personal experience. Do you feel like there's patterns in terms of what people are feeling from a physical standpoint and what they end up needing to release?
Um, I guess the main thing that I strive to do with my clients is to reduce fear.
Mm-hmm.
They all have a lot of fear over the symptoms. And why wouldn't
Right.
you? They're
Yeah.
painful. It's normal to fear the symptoms. Um, but what I do is to help them reduce the fear is we create an evidence journal right away. And I have them in between sessions add to this evidence journal. Any little aha moment that happens, we start adding to it. So reducing the fear is a main thing I see in all my clients that they usually need help with. But by learning to become indifferent to them, the symptoms, and I try to teach them to become indifferent to them. And that's not easy. It's not always easy. But when I teach them the somatics and show them that there's other sensations in their body and we lean into positive ones and look it through a lens of curiosity, the fear definitely can be reduced. Um, the other way I reduce fear with my clients is just giving them a really good knowledge base. Once they understand what's happening, it's a little easier to stop fearing it because they know it's just TMS.
Right. Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for sure. Fear is definitely the culprit, and it makes sense, right? Because like so many of us, just like you, when you first started having symptoms, you probably also felt really alone, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
they felt like really weird symptoms. So we start thinking like, oh my God, well these are really abnormal until you get immersed in the mind body community. You're like, oh, they're not so abnormal.
Right.
They're common amongst this you know, in this community. So then it's like it almost like normalizes it, and not to say that it's normal to have them, it's just normal of the TMS you know, laundry list of potential sensations in the body that we go through.
Right. And I find that people with pelvic pain, especially, they feel very isolated because it's a vulnerable part of the body to talk about. It really is. And I'm not saying it's that someone's condition is not, that someone's pain is not worse than someone else's. It's not that. It's sometimes there's a lot of shame that comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of isolation. They have no one to share these specific types of symptoms with. And, so I try to help normalize that with my clients and help them, make peace with it and understand that this part of the body is no different than the back or the arm. It's just another part of your body.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so you used a hypnotherapist to help you to do a lot of emotional release work early on. So
Mm-hmm.
for your clients and just when you're just, you know, helping anyone, what are the tools that you most recommend for people to have some of this emotional release?
I really find I'm going to go back to it because it really works. And that's what I do on all my clients by the third session. After doing the evidence journal and the knowledge, we basically do the somatic experiencing. And the other part is because that really releases trauma in the body. When we find the part of our body that's holding on to the anger. I'll give you an example. So I work with a woman with restless leg syndrome. And in these sessions, we give these legs a voice. And she's angry. And we're able to let these legs kick to discharge the energy. And we're not actually kicking someone. It's all in a visualization, because the brain doesn't know the difference between a visualization and what's really happening. So we're able to basically discharge that energy, which then releases some of that trauma. And the other way I do it now is I do breathwork sessions, and that helps release. That gives a discharge in the body too, to release this trauma.
Interesting. Okay, so you aren't really having people go back into their trauma mentally or emotionally. You're literally just using the body. And so they don't even have to know specifically what they're angry about.
Sometimes not, but a lot of times it comes up in a session.
Okay.
And if it comes up, I let it come up. Like I have a woman that she was in a bad plane crash. So we go back and we process the plane crash step by step. And with somatics, it's done very slowly. So we do actually go back sometimes, but I actually let it organically come up in a session.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, this is really interesting. This is a little bit of a different spin on how to approach it, which I really like, because there's a lot of school of thought out there, and it's different tools work for different people. We all know this. There's not one size fits all, and some people use, like, say, expressive writing, and they have so much success with it, and other people have the opposite, like it really doesn't support them in the way they need. And some people believe that, like, going back and intentionally going and digging up trauma isn't necessary. And it sounds to me like you're really only letting it present itself mentally or emotionally if it does organically happen, and otherwise you're just using the body as a tool to release this energy.
Right. Correct.
Yeah. And
Correct.
You're saying that in the example of the restless leg syndrome, she's not even actually kicking her legs in the session. She's just visualizing kicking out the anger.
Exactly.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
This is great, because this is just another, how do I want to say it? It is another way or approach for people who feel like they've tried a bunch of other tools, like the writing, or have had trauma therapists and things. Maybe this is a way they haven't explored it yet from this angle, and it's nice to have that option present itself for people.
Right. Some people say to me, "Oh, I've tried somatic tracking," but this is a little different. This goes to another level. It's not just tracking your symptoms, basically.
Right. Not at all. No, it's yeah. And there's so many different layers of the word, that fall under the word somatic. So
exactly.
In terms of, like, let's just go, because I love concrete examples. So we'll use the same example with the restless leg syndrome. How is it through the, like, how did she get to the awareness that it was anger related to the syndrome?
Well, basically, I asked her to give it a voice. And when we give it a voice, and when you let them just really think and let them sit with it a minute, they are able to give them it a voice. And this person was angry at a specific person in her family. And I said, "What do those legs have the urge to do?" And she said they have the urge to kick. So a lot of times what I do is I have her visualize a screen almost in front of her, and her in the screen. And it could be the person she wants to kick, and it doesn't have to be. It could be a punching bag. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't actually have to be that person there. But again, it's a visualization. So we're not even hurting the person if the person is there. And once that urge is expressed and that action is completed, we can see the legs go completely down and the pain vanishes.
Interesting.
And now sometimes I will tell you it won't stay down until the next session, but what we're doing is developing capacity.
Yes.
For them to stay down. And then eventually it's more and more and more. She has less leg pain.
Right. Now, is there ever a time where a the experience isn't enough and somebody actually does need to get up and like shake and kick it out?
Well, yeah, you know what? We do. We can do the movement physically, but in somatics, it's all done slowly. Where when I was doing my own therapy, I would take and I know you can't see me right now, but I would take my arm and make a fist and slowly move my arm out and extend it just to get that anger and release out of my body.
Interesting. Okay. Very cool. I'm learning stuff.
And it actually works.
But when you're doing it, are you consciously like thinking about that's what you're doing is releasing anger?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
You're putting the two together.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I love this.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it's definitely like I've definitely been really intrigued by somatics, and I've had a lot of people on here talking about various types of somatic stuff, but not from this angle. So this is really cool. Yay,
Right.
new stuff for people. Okay, so what else? I want to know how people can connect with you as we talk about all this new stuff. If somebody's like, "Whoa, this is my jam," you know what? I want to experience it this way.
Sure, sure. I have a website, feeltoheal.live, and I have an Instagram, Feel to Heal Coaching. I have a Facebook page, Feel to Heal, and I have a email address, mbcoachlaura@gmail.com.
Are you still actively posting dance videos on TikTok?
I do have some TikToks, and I still do them with my kids. I actually do.
Oh,
I
it's so
do because
fun.
it's fun, and
Yeah.
and joy is important. It's it's one of the most important things.
So important. And sometimes when we really get on that downward spiral of chronic symptoms, like we lose that joy. Our life gets smaller and smaller,
Mm-hmm.
and that joy gets replaced with the fear and more fear. And it's like, it really is so important. And it's so hard sometimes when you're in that really small place to be like, well, wait, I don't understand. I can't live my life and go create joy because of the pain. We think we
Mm-hmm.
can't do all these things because of the pain until we can begin to like take those baby steps, little steps, and do things in spite of the pain that bring us that joy, because it becomes such an integral part of the healing.
Absolutely. And I tell my clients too, even if you can find the littlest amount of joy every day. I remember Caitlin told me, I hope I don't say his name wrong, Sebastian Maniscalco. He's a famous comedian. So every Friday night, me and my husband would put him on and we would watch him just to find something to make me laugh or smile, to put even this, the slightest amount of joy in my day. It didn't have to be, a big thing. So joy is very important.
Yes, find the slightest joy and hold on to it.
Yeah.
And speaking of joy, you through this experience discovered an entirely new joy that you never knew you could even have, dancing.
Yes.
Yeah, you said, I'm not a good dancer, but you learned to dance and then actually found joy in it. So it's interesting because I think it begs to say, like, it's so important to keep our minds open to possibility and what can be joyful and play and experiment, because so many things in our life, especially when we don't do this kind of work of self-discovery, we have all these very limiting beliefs like, oh, I don't do this, or I don't do that, or oh, I don't like that, even though I've never tried it. And sometimes this journey, as hard as it can be, really does expand our minds and open us to new possibilities. And all of a sudden it's like, wait, I'm the kind of person who actually loves this and I never even knew it.
Exactly. And when you find this joy, it actually helps regulate your nervous system.
Right.
That's exactly what's happening.
Right. Yeah.
Which helps healing.
Right. It's like, yeah, exactly. It's like the loop that you want to be in.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's just so awesome. It's like, be open, because you just never know. Yeah. You just never know what new things will show up that you're like, wow, I'm actually good at this, or oh, I really love this, and we didn't before. But that's another thing that can be a blessing, is it like expands our minds into possibility that maybe before we were closed off to.
Yeah, it's, and another blessing is too, I really learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I really am. I'm stronger than I thought, that I have, the ability to do this. And I had the ability to regulate my nervous system. And now I have the ability to take what happened to me and help other people.
Right. Yeah. Yes, I would say you're stronger than you thought in probably all dimensions, mind, body, like all of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we always are. I always tell people in my movement classes, like it's likely that your body's way more capable than you realize mentally.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful. So what would be one message that you would share with the world for the rest of your life if you were only allowed to share one message?
One message. Well, before I do that, I just want to mention one thing. One of the main lessons that I've learned is, and I would tell this to all people experiencing pain, take your time making decisions. A lot of people that have these conditions are like, oh, this is the next best thing, and run to it
Mm-hmm.
without taking your time to really process it, find the facts about it, and do what's right for you. But
Yeah.
don't run to it. Take your time making the decisions, because, doctors don't know everything. But
Yeah.
yeah, but I guess what I'd want to leave you with is, if I had to leave you with one thing, that joy and love are the most important components for healing from chronic pain. And you have the power to heal yourself. The power lies within you. I healed, and so can you.
Yay. So true. The power is within us. Absolutely. And I really do think I'm so grateful you mentioned that lesson about taking your time, because I do believe like it's so important for us to be our own experiment,
Mm-hmm.
But with that said, yeah, it's like, are you running from thing to thing? Are you bouncing really fast? Are you creating, is it like is your drive because of urgency, or are you actually processing and seeing if it feels right to you? Are you leaning into it and thinking, like, yeah, just to be patient with some of these decisions, because a lot of us, sometimes we feel so much urgency to get to healing and to get to relief that we just quickly like do this, do that, do this, hear that, oh, I got to go do that right away. And while we do need to be our own experiment, it's good to sometimes lean into something long enough.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Slow down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Probably if we look at our history, there's probably a lot of us who had a tendency of just doing those things really fast in our life before we found ourselves in chronic pain.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's patterns there. Like you said, you were all over the pages of the Dr. Schubiner book.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I
Mm-hmm.
was. And I use this now as tools in my life now. Even though I, don't have symptoms, anything I do now, I slow down and I find out the facts and I take my time
Mm-hmm.
choosing which path is best for me.
Yep. Yeah, it's a good way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. All right. Well, do you have any other final thoughts or just things that you're passionate about sharing that I didn't ask you?
No, the only thing I would mention is with the somatics, one of the things I teach people to activate their parasympathetic nervous system is by stimulating the vagus nerve. So that's one of the other last things that I really use with my clients to help them, because when you stimulate the vagus nerve, your parasympathetic system is activated. And that's what we want for healing as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And there's so many wonderful tools and resources out there to learn simple techniques for that.
Yeah. And I guess if anyone has any questions for me and they want to contact me at any time, I am more than open to answering any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks for being here and sharing your story with my podcast listeners, and sharing your story in all the other outlets and platforms that you are. Because, yes, like you said, getting to share stories really does instill hope for other people. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate your time.
Of course.
All right, you guys, that's a wrap. Thanks again for listening. My hope, as always, is that for every story, there is some way that you're inspired or some way that you are reminded that you are also capable of healing in your own way. And also, I love when we have new tools for people to experiment with to discover what works for them. As always, please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcast if you have not done so yet. It only takes 2 minutes of your time. And there's also a virtual tip jar link at the bottom of the show notes if you choose to help support future episodes monetarily. And of course, it is always helpful when you share your favorite episodes on social media so that we can spread the message of empowerment and healing far and wide. All right, friends, that is it for today. And as always, until next time, please make this week great.